Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Cloud Reporting, Pain Points, and How to Solve Them. My name is Katie Bolt, and I'm our Business Development Associate here at Lear. Before we get into the presentation today, I just have a couple housekeeping items I just want to cover. Everyone will be placed on mute for the duration of the presentations. There's going to be 3 poll questions throughout the webinar. We encourage your participation. If you guys have any questions for Karen throughout the presentation, you can submit them at the Q&A portion at the bottom of your screen, or there is a chat to speakers portal. You can submit them there and we'll answer them at the end during the Q&A portion. Also, a recording of today's presentation will be sent out in a couple of days, and you can find the recording from today's presentation as well as all of our past recordings on our Lear YouTube channel and Lear.com. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Karen Kostix, to kick off today's presentation.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, so let's go through quick agenda. First, we'll do introductions, then a reporting overview, OTBI pain points and solutions, followed by BI Publisher pain points and solutions, and then a Q&A. Hi, everyone. I am Karen Kostix. I've been a consultant with Lear going on 4 years now, or actually just over 4 years now. I've been on several successful HCM cloud implementations and specialize in HCM cloud reporting. A little bit about Lear. Lear was established in 2005, celebrating 15+ years of business. We help our clients succeed by partnering with them to efficiently implement, integrate, and upgrade their software investments. In addition to that, we provide strategic guidance to assist with best practices and helping unlock the potential of software investments. We have a deep commitment to excellence and quality. We consider ourselves a trusted advisor to our clients and thought leaders in the industry. And we have been recognized as a member of Oracle's Cloud's Excellence Implementer Program.
Thank you, Karen. We have our first poll question. The first one's going to be, where's your organization on your cloud journey? Already live on cloud, maybe mid-implementation, we've purchased it but not began, considering, or no current plans? I'll give about 15 seconds to answer. So it looks like most people, Karen, are already live on cloud, and we have a small percentage that have no current plans for Oracle Cloud yet.
Okay, great. So yeah, so this hopefully there's a lot of insight that can be gained from this. Reporting seems to be something that comes up definitely during implementation, but a lot of times it's not really crucial until after implementation when people really need access to their data. Okay, so we'll do a quick overview of the cloud reporting tools. So when a client purchases cloud, or a company purchases cloud, they are provisioned with business intelligence. This includes delivered reports and analytics, application pages where delivered and custom reports can be viewed, as well as tools to create custom reports. From this diagram here, I'm going to be talking about the OTBI tool and the BI Publisher tool. You can see in the diagram that the BI Publisher tool is able to access the database directly, but the OTBI tool actually hits a semantic model prior that's built on the database, but it's not directly accessing the database. Okay, a little bit more about OTBI, or Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence. This is a really nice tool for technical users and more techno-functional users, because you don't necessarily need to write SQL. It has a drag and drop tool where you can drag fields into your report. And the data in OTBI analyses come from subject areas. Subject areas are pre-built logical data structures associated with specific application modules. So you'll have some subject areas for payroll, benefits, workforce management, and potentially other modules based on what you are implementing or are live on. Again, for OTBI, the data comes from that presentation layer built on top of the application database tables. So here we have an example of a subject area. It's workforce management position real time. So each subject area is kind of like a snowflake. It will be built differently, but a lot of the structure is the same. So they'll all have different tables and different logics behind the scenes, but then common features. So each subject area will have folders, and within those folders will be your fields. In this example here, we have business unit name is one of the fields, and this field is considered an attribute field. It's just a list of value. We also have a headcount field. This one is considered a measured field, and if you notice the icons next to them, they're tiny, but they look a little different. The measure fields have ruler icons, and the attribute fields have, I think it's like a nine square box. And the difference between the attribute or the measure fields is measure fields will change based on the fields you bring into the report. So they will aggregate, and it's defaulted to a sum based on what other fields you bring into the report. And even though each subject area will have its own unique folders, there's many folders in HCM subject areas that will be the same across the subject areas. So there's a worker folder which has person, name, and other information that would be pretty helpful about an employee. And that's pretty much in all of the HCM and payroll and benefits subject areas. Okay, so the other tool, BI Publisher or Business Intelligence Publisher, is an alternative reporting solution to OTBI. BI Publisher is, OTBI creating an analysis is a one-step process, whereas BI Publisher is a two-step process. First, you create a data model, which could be a SQL query, and then you create a report built on top of that data model. Using the Business Intelligence Publisher, you can actually access the database directly with SQL queries. With this tool, you can create highly formatted templates as well. So if your report needs to look a specific way, then this tool is likely the tool of choice.
Thank you, Karen. So we have our second poll question, and it's going to be, how familiar are you with Cloud's OTBI tool? I'll give you about 15 seconds to answer again. And I'm going to close it out here. It looks like the group is pretty spread across intermediate, beginner, and learning, and this is the first time they've ever heard about it. So now Karen's actually going to talk a little bit more about the tool.
Great. That I think is a, hopefully there's some helpful tips in here for those new or even intermediate to it. Okay, so we're going to talk about some pain points and solutions with this OTBI tool. Okay, so pain point number one, I need data from multiple subject areas. So many times you may need data from different module areas, or even within the same module, different subject areas. For example, you might want assignment information about an employee as well as their salary info. Some of the information you need would be in workforce management, worker assignment real time if you wanted current, and then some of the data you need would be in compensation salary details real time. Luckily, you can actually use multiple subject areas in one report. But if you just start using multiple subject areas without knowing some of the rules behind it, you might get an error message. So Oracle requires two things for different subject areas to be joined. One of the items is pretty easy if you're doing anything in HCM, because almost every single subject area has similar folders. So the one item is the subject areas that you're trying to join together must have a folder in common. HCM, almost all of the payroll benefits will all have that worker folder. So that one almost automatically happens. The other piece that needs to happen to join the subject areas together without error is you need a measured field from each subject area. You need to bring this into the report. And sometimes the measured fields might not be relevant to the report, so you could hide them, but it actually needs to be in the report. And sometimes finding the measured field is easy, and other times you might need to do a little digging, but each subject area will have a measured field. One note about joining subject areas is some subject areas play nicely together and others do not. So they join behind the scenes, and you won't necessarily see exactly how the subject areas are joining. So it's really a good tip to verify the data. Make sure you have lots of test cases and the data is looking as you would expect. There is another option if you want more, say you join some benefits and payroll information together and it's not looking how you would expect it. Maybe you're getting multiple payroll periods and you only want the most recent, or there could be all sorts of different things where it's not joining how you want it to. You can use logical SQL to join the subject areas on the keys and the ways you want them to be joined. Logical SQL does take a little getting used to. It's like SQL, but a little, just the syntax is different. But Cloud Customer Connect does have many examples of they call it LSQL or logical SQL. So definitely go to Cloud Customer Connect and just type that in, and you should be able to find some examples that you could use as maybe a base for your report. Okay, our next pain point is when a user runs a report and gets a no results message, but based on the criteria, data should be returned. So say we have an analysis built that's supposed to bring back all active employees, and we have 1,000+ active employees. And the user goes in and runs it, and they get no results, and there's no other filters. So sometimes, the filters are too restrictive, but oftentimes it is due to the user running the report not having access to the subject area. So a user's security will determine everything they can do in regards to reports. And if they don't have the correct security, they may not have access to the subject area that the analysis is built on. So there's a document that I might be referencing quite a bit throughout this webinar, and it's called Oracle's Subject Area Documentation. We have a link to it at the end of the PowerPoint, and you can also find it on Cloud Customer Connect. It gives a brief description of the subject area, the transactional grain, like what base tables it's built on and any logic. Some questions you might be able to answer from using the subject area. And that same document on the next tab is a security tab. And that tab will tell you the different job roles or duty roles that the user must have to see data in the subject area. So it's a really helpful document. If you get a no results message, and there should be data, it will be a starting point. Maybe the user doesn't have the right security. So if an employee is trying to access a workforce management worker assignment real time, and they don't have the human resource analyst role or other human resource roles or duties, that's probably why they're not seeing data. Another pain point is custom fields aren't showing in subject areas. So an organization may use custom fields to capture organization-specific data, but when you look at OTBI, they can't be found anywhere. So here we recommend working with a functional team member to review where the custom fields live and make sure that they are set up to actually show up in OTBI. There's a little checkbox that needs to be marked BI enabled. As long as they're set up correctly, they should appear after a certain job is run. And that job is called Import Oracle Fusion Data Extensions for Transactional Business Intelligence. So it's kind of a mouthful. And it takes that, I believe it takes like 4 to, it's a long job, but after it's run, if they're still not showing, then do some troubleshooting with that functional team member, but they should with those 2 steps. Okay, so this is a pretty typical pain point, especially with someone new to OTBI. It can be really difficult to determine which subject area to use to pull the data. There's definitely a lot of subject areas, and the names are sometimes intuitive, but they're not always. So I'm going to reference that document again, Oracle's OTBI Subject Area Documentation, which has a description of all of the subject areas, the HCM subject areas, as well as additional details about them. So if you wanted to pull in, current salary information, you could pull in compensation, salary details, real time, and this document tells you a little bit about it. If you wanted historical, you would find the historical subject area in that document. Okay, so this one, this is a pretty frustrating pain point, and it does take some time getting used to, and it's dependent on, it really helps to know the subject area as well. So aggregate amounts look funny. So we talked previously about those measured field items. They are the ones that have the ruler next to them, and they aggregate based on the fields and filters in the report. Many times the aggregate amount could look inaccurate. It might be, it might be kind of upsetting when you see, an amount that doesn't look right, and you've got to do some digging to figure out what's going on. So one of our biggest recommendations here is to use multiple test cases to verify what the amount should be, and then bring in multiple fields to identify what may explain the difference. So an example here is, say you wanted the rate that someone's paying for a benefit, maybe like their medical deduction. And so you would use the subject area benefit and enrollments real time. But if you didn't bring in all of the fields, you might get a really large number, even though you know that that's not what the person should be paying. So there's quite a few fields to bring in. Because this subject area has historical enrollments, you would need to bring in the coverage start date and the coverage through date. There's also the status. So some people might actually be enrolled in it, but other people, maybe they backed out of it, or the enrollment was voided. So you'd also want to make sure you brought in the status field or added a condition around it. There's also a rate type. So maybe the employer is paying a portion of it and the employee is paying another portion of it. So if you don't bring in all those fields, you'll see an amount that would be very inaccurate. But once you start bringing in those fields, you'll see, you'll be able to get current enrollment and then only the employee payment. So it definitely does take some exploration, but you can also start building documents to make notes on what fields need to be brought into a different report based on what's being needed. Okay, pain point number 6. A report needs multiple manipulations and complex conditions. So I had mentioned OTBI is a great tool for non-technical people, as well as more technical people. And even though the drop and drag functionality of it does make it seem, like it's really nice and simple, it does offer tools to do advanced manipulation on columns. So you can add case statements to columns. You can do advanced filters. So if you need, if you have lots of and or ors and just really complex or multiple filters, you can put them in one seat. You can write SQL there. You can do all sorts of functions on columns, and it's nice if you bring up the function box, OTBI provides the syntax for what you would need to do that function. Okay, pain point number 7, a required field doesn't appear to be in OTBI. So I mentioned that the HCM subject area documentation, but there's also a database mapping document that's really helpful. Rather than exploring every single folder in every subject area, you can use this Excel document, which has all of the subject areas and the fields they contain, and simply filter by the column. The presentation column is what the OTBI field name would be. If you're still not able to find the field using this document, there's always the option of opening an SR with Oracle and advising them what field you are looking for. And then for an easier SR experience, always supply screenshots and navigation of the field that you're looking for. Okay, another poll question.
Thank you, Karen. We're on our last poll question of the day. And it's going to be, how familiar are you with Cloud's BI Publisher tool? I'll give about 15 seconds to answer again. And I'll close it out now. It looks like everyone is saying they're beginner and learning to learn or looking to learn more about BI Publisher.
Okay, nice. That's I like OTBI, but BI Publisher, hand in hand, they're really helpful tools. If you can learn OTBI, you're definitely on your way to learning BI Publisher. And then when you have both of those tools, you can be pretty unstoppable. So that's exciting to hear, looking to learn more. Okay. So for the first BI Publisher pain point, it's kind of the reverse scenario of one of the OTBI pain points, where the user couldn't see data in OTBI. In BI Publisher, when a user runs a BI Publisher report, they are able to see data they shouldn't have access to. So the tip here is to build the data model using secured lists. Oracle has created several views that can be used that would take the user's security profile into account, and it would kind of mirror OTBI security. So Pearl People F has person number. So if you switched that table in your data model to per person secured list V, you would actually, if the person viewing it only had access to these people, they would only return that on the report. Compared to the first, using Pearl People F, they would see everyone, all of the people in the system, unless you had security access around folders or other ways to limit that data. But this is definitely a pretty easy adjustment to BI Publisher reports. You can pretty much just swap out the database table with the secured list and add that security in that way. Okay, so this next pain point, we're going to talk through all of the slides for the BI Publisher. It's pretty big. There are so many fields and tables. So if you are transitioning from any other legacy system except EBS, the tables and the table names can be definitely overwhelming in the beginning because there are so many tables. It's a very normalized database, but there's a lot of tricks to make this a little easier. So if you are able to create an OTBI report with most of the data you need, but it needs to be in BI Publisher for whatever reason, maybe the formatting needs to be really specific, or there's certain fields that you can't get in OTBI, or just very advanced manipulations that you can't do in OTBI, you can still use your OTBI analysis to get an idea of the database tables. If you need to access the database tables directly. And you do that by going into the administration tab, issuing SQL, and then viewing a log. And this will show you the behind the scenes way that Oracle is actually getting to the data in the subject areas. It can be a little tedious, but sometimes it can be a real help. Sometimes if you are just looking for a field, you can use that mapping document that I mentioned. If you know where the data is in OTBI and you just want to find what table it lives in BI Publisher, you can find the table or the field name, and then it will, you can look and see exactly what BI Publisher table and field it corresponds to. Another helpful thing that Oracle does provide is on Cloud Customer Connect are relational diagrams that can be utilized. So it's not, I have I think a partial benefits one here, and it's pretty large, but I recommend making simpler versions and using those, because there's so many tables and a lot of them aren't necessarily utilized. So maybe you only want benefits, enrollments, and employees and their current enrollments. You wouldn't need a lot of these tables, but it is something that can be referenced. And so this, if you guys are somewhat new or intermediate, you might have been on Cloud Customer Connect quite a bit, but if you haven't, I definitely recommend heading there. They have a whole report sharing center with delivered report, or not, sorry, not delivered reports, with reports that you can archive and unarchive into your system or copy the XML. And it's really helpful. And sometimes the reports out there might actually meet requirements and you could potentially use a report and not do any tweaking. Other times it is at least a resource that could be looked at, and potentially you can see how things are built or get some insight there. Okay, so we went over OTBI pain points, BI Publisher pain points, and now a very common one is I don't know whether to use OTBI or BI Publisher. So sometimes identifying which tool to use for the job can be really tough. And for those instances, we recommend asking yourself some questions about the report that you're trying to build first. So if the report needs to be highly formatted and really needs to look a specific way, BI Publisher would be the tool for the job. If the report needs data that is not available in any subject areas, then BI Publisher. So most of the data is available in OTBI, but there are still fields that aren't. Oracle's always adding fields, but if you needed, I think it's tax location address isn't currently available in OTBI. So if that's a required field in the report, then BI Publisher would be the only option. If a report requires complex derived data from multiple modules, you could do it in OTBI, especially if it's subject areas that play nicely together, but many times it is easier to go the BI Publisher route. Report has a large number of rows. OTBI does have a limitation on that, so BI Publisher would be the way to go. However, if the report needs to be integrated easily with security configuration and with no additional design, OTBI is great for that. Report is transactional, operational in nature, and needs to be prepared real time. And data is relatively simple and is from one module area. OTBI is great for all of those. Okay, so in conclusion, Cloud offers several tools to extract data. Each tool definitely has its pros and cons. Certain best practices and tips can make report development a smoother process. On the screen, we have that OTBI subject area documentation that I was mentioning. You can find it on Cloud Customer Connect or using this link. And then the mapping documentation that shows BI Publisher fields compared to OTBI fields can also be found on that second link. So I hope there was some helpful tidbits. Now we are moving on to questions.
Thank you, Karen. We had a few questions come through. The first one is, why would you use OTBI if it doesn't always have the fields you need? And can't it bring in data from multiple modules?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So even though OTBI does, one of the biggest, I think, draws for OTBI is how quickly you can build a report. And if you need a certain type of report, it's amazing. So like if you want, kind of straightforward benefit enrollments, you can build a report, an OTBI report in less than an hour. Same with payroll run results. You could build it very quickly. The subject areas really do have a ton of data. But there definitely are some limitations if you're trying to do kind of some unique things with it. So one time I did a comparison of how quickly you could do an OTBI report compared to kind of the same exact report in BI Publisher, and the BI Publisher was lots of tables, pretty complex, and OTBI was just super quick. So a great tool to use depending on what you need.
Thank you, Karen. The second question is, what if reports need to be scheduled and sent to emails? Is there a specific tool to use?
The nice thing about both of the tools that we talked about is you can schedule them both. The way you schedule them is slightly different. In a BI Publisher report, you can actually just click on the more, and you'll be taken to a step-by-step scheduling process. In OTBI, you create an agent, which is pretty similar to the scheduling process. It just is called an agent, and then you have to run it based on whatever schedule. So if you want it one time or multiple times, so they both offer really easy to do.
Thank you, Karen. And the last question is, do OTBI subject areas provide historical information, or is it just going to be current information?
And that's a really great question. So depending on the subject area, some of them do only offer current or effective dated rows, but there are many historical subject areas. So for workforce management, there's one subject area called worker assignment real time, which will bring in the current assignment row. There's logic around the effective start date and the effective end date of the assignment row. But if you wanted, a worker's entire assignment history, you could use a similar subject area, but it's called workforce management worker assignment event real time, and that brings in that historical piece. And same is true with salary and benefits enrollments they'll have all of the historical in there, so you would need logic around the dates if you only wanted current date there.
Great, Karen. Thank you. And if anyone has any additional questions, I have Karen's contact information as well as mine on the screen. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask us there as well. But just to wrap up, we wanted to thank everyone again for taking the time to join us for the webinar today. Just a reminder, a recording will be sent out and a follow-up in the next couple of days. And just as always, engage with Lear on social media. We're always posting new content weekly. And we wanted just to thank you again for joining, and have a great rest of your day.